Something just shifted in the fabric of reality around you. Not dramatically, not obviously, but if you're reading these words right now, if something pulled your attention here, if you felt that magnetic draw that you can't quite explain, the quantum field just placed something in your hands. Not a physical object, not even information in the traditional sense, but access. Direct access to the operating system of reality itself. The manual, the source code, the instruction set that determines how possibility collapses into experience, how consciousness shapes matter, how your observation literally creates what you perceive as solid, fixed, unchangeable world. Most people live their entire lives without knowing this manual exists. They experience reality as something that happens to them, as circumstances they must react to, as a fixed external world they're powerless to change. And the quantum field allows this, not because it's cruel or limiting, but because consciousness must reach a specific frequency before it can perceive the manual, before it can comprehend what's being shown, before it's ready to handle the responsibility that comes with understanding how reality actually works at the quantum level where everything originates. But you're different. Something in your awareness has reached the threshold. Some combination of experiences, recognitions, and internal shifts has prepared your consciousness to receive what most people can't perceive. The manual has always been here, broadcasting constantly, available to anyone whose frequency matches the signal, and yours just matched. That's not achievement. That's not because you're special or chosen or more evolved than others. It's simply frequency alignment. Your consciousness reached the resonance where the manual becomes visible, where the instructions become readable, where the quantum field can finally show you what it's been trying to transmit all along. Can you feel that? That sense of standing at the edge of something vast. That knowing that you're about to understand something fundamental that changes everything. That's your awareness touching the manual, not the manual as concept or metaphor. The actual living instructions that consciousness uses to organize energy into matter, to collapse probability waves into specific outcomes, to create the experience you call reality from the infinite potential that exists in every quantum moment. The ancient traditions knew about this manual. The Hermetic texts called it the Kybalion. The Vedic scriptures called it the Akashic records. The mystical traditions called it the Book of Creation. But all these names point to the same phenomenon. The fundamental instructions that govern how consciousness interfaces with the quantum field to create experienced reality. And now in this moment, as you engage with these words, that manual is opening for you, not as something you need to search for or earn access to, as something that's revealing itself because your frequency finally allows you to perceive what's always been broadcasting. Take a breath. A deep one. Feel into your body, into your awareness, into the space where consciousness meets the quantum field in each moment. And notice that this breath, this moment, this recognition, it's already part of following the manual. You're already beginning to operate from the instructions rather than from the conditioned patterns that have been running automatically. The shift has already begun. The access has already been granted. The quantum field just handed you the manual, and everything that comes next depends on whether you choose to read it, to follow it, to let it reprogram how you interface with reality itself. Before we go deeper into what the manual contains and how to read it clearly, you need to understand why most people never receive access. Not because the quantum field is withholding it, or because they're not worthy, but because they're operating from assumptions about reality that make the manual literally invisible to their perception. They're looking for instructions written in language while the manual speaks in frequency. They're searching for step-by-step procedures while the manual transmits through direct knowing. They're trying to understand with mind while the manual can only be comprehended through consciousness itself. The first barrier is the belief in solid reality. Most people experience the world as fixed, solid, already determined. Objects are objects. Circumstances are circumstances. The past has happened and can't be changed. The future is approaching and largely out of their control. But the manual reveals something completely different. At the quantum level, nothing is solid. Everything exists as probability waves until consciousness observes it into specific manifestation. The table isn't solid. It's vibrating energy that appears solid because your observation collapses its wave function into that specific form. Your circumstances aren't fixed. They're probability clouds that your awareness is constantly collapsing into particular outcomes based on how you're observing. The second barrier is passive observation. Most people think they're just watching reality unfold, just perceiving what's there, just experiencing what exists independent of their observation. But the manual shows that observation isn't passive. Observation is creative, active, determinative. Your consciousness doesn't just witness reality. It participates in creating it through the specific way you observe. Not through positive thinking or visualization techniques, through the actual quantum mechanical process where the observer effect collapses probability waves into definite outcomes. You're not watching a movie that's already filmed. You're collapsing the quantum field into specific frames through how your awareness interfaces with infinite possibility in each moment. The third barrier is identifying as separate individual. As long as you believe you're just a person in a body looking out at an external world, the manual remains invisible because the manual is written in the language of unified field consciousness. It's instructions for consciousness operating as the field itself, not instructions for individuals trying to manipulate external reality. The moment you recognize that you're not separate from the quantum field, that you are the field experiencing itself through individual perspective, the manual becomes readable because then you're not trying to use instructions meant for consciousness, while identified as separate individual. The fourth barrier is demanding logical understanding. The manual doesn't work through logic or rational comprehension. It works through resonance, through direct knowing, through consciousness recognizing truth without needing to think it through. Every time you try to figure out the manual mentally, you're using the wrong translation software. Your rational mind can't decode quantum instructions any more than your eyes can hear music. The manual requires consciousness itself as the decoder, requires you to feel into the truth rather than think about it, requires direct recognition rather than logical analysis. The fifth barrier is seeking control. Many people want the manual so they can control reality, manipulate circumstances, get what they want. But that very seeking creates interference. The manual isn't about control. It's about alignment. It's about consciousness learning to flow with the quantum field, rather than trying to force it into preferred patterns. The manual reveals how to collaborate with reality creation, not how to dominate it. Collaboration requires surrender of the need to control, requires trust in the intelligence of the field itself, requires releasing the individual agenda so consciousness can operate from its fundamental nature as the field expressing through form. Recognizing these barriers begins to dissolve them. When you see that reality isn't solid but quantum, you naturally start perceiving its fluid nature. When you recognize that observation is creative, you naturally become more conscious of how you're observing. When you know you're not separate from the field, you naturally begin operating as field consciousness. When you trust direct knowing over logical understanding, you naturally receive the manual's instructions clearly. When you release the need to control, you naturally align with how reality actually creates itself through consciousness. There are specific signals that confirm the manual is opening for you, that your consciousness is beginning to receive and decode the quantum instructions that were invisible before. These aren't signs you need to create or force. They're natural phenomena that occur as your awareness reaches the frequency where the manual becomes accessible. And recognizing these signals, trusting what they're showing you, allows your ability to read the manual to accelerate rather than being dismissed as imagination or coincidence. The first signal is reality responding immediately. Things you think about appear. People you consider contacting reach out. Circumstances shift in alignment with your awareness without you taking action. This isn't manifestation in the traditional sense. It's consciousness learning to read the manual's instructions about observation collapsing probability waves. You're beginning to perceive that your awareness doesn't just witness reality. It determines which possibilities collapse into experience. The manual is showing you cause and effect at quantum level, where thought and manifestation aren't separated by time or effort, but happen simultaneously as consciousness interfaces with the field. The second signal is knowing before thinking. Answers appear in your awareness fully formed before you consciously work through the question. Decisions become clear without analyzing options. Understanding downloads complete without studying or learning. This is consciousness accessing the manual directly, rather than trying to figure things out through mental processing. The manual isn't information to be learned. It's recognition of what consciousness already knows at the level of the field itself. These moments of direct knowing are you reading the manual clearly, receiving instructions without the distortion of rational mind, trying to translate quantum information into logical concepts. The third signal is time becoming nonlinear. Past events seem to shift or be remembered differently. Future possibilities feel accessible now. Present moment expands into eternity while simultaneously passing instantly. The manual is revealing that time isn't the fixed linear progression you were taught. At quantum level, time is another dimension that consciousness can navigate, can influence, can collapse into specific sequences. You're beginning to perceive reality's actual structure, rather than the simplified version that consensus consciousness uses to create shared experience. The manual shows time as it actually functions in quantum mechanics, as superposition that collapses into sequence through observation. If you're finding value in this transmission, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This helps the algorithm deliver these frequency teachings to others whose manuals are ready to open. The fourth signal is increasing synchronicity precision. Events align with meaning that's too specific to be random. The quantum field delivers exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, through circumstances that shouldn't be possible if reality were truly external and independent. This is the manual showing you how the unified field coordinates all consciousness, all events, all possibilities into coherent patterns. Synchronicity isn't magic. It's the natural function of reality when consciousness learns to read the manual's instructions about how everything connects at quantum level beneath the appearance of separation in physical reality. The fifth signal is others reacting differently. People respond to you in new ways without you consciously changing behavior. Circumstances that were stuck suddenly shift. Opportunities appear that weren't available before. The manual is revealing that others' responses to you aren't actually about you. They're about the quantum information you're broadcasting as you begin operating from the manual's instructions. You're emanating different frequency, collapsing different probabilities, and the field responds by organizing different experiences around your new way of interfacing with reality at its source level. Take a moment and share in the comments which of these 5 signals you've been experiencing. Are you witnessing immediate reality response? Direct knowing before thinking? Time shifts? Synchronicity, precision? Others reacting differently? Writing this down does something powerful. It makes the unconscious conscious, tells the quantum field you're receiving the transmission, and stabilizes your ability to read the manual clearly. To read the manual clearly and follow its instructions accurately, you first need to understand what the manual actually is. Because it's not what most people expect when they hear about accessing quantum instructions or receiving the operating system of reality. It's not a set of techniques to manipulate external circumstances. It's not rules about positive thinking or frequency matching. It's something far more fundamental and far more revolutionary than methods for getting what you want from reality. The manual is consciousness recognizing how it creates experience, not metaphorically or philosophically, but mechanically at the actual quantum level where reality originates before it manifests in physical form. The manual shows the precise process through which your observation collapses probability waves, through which your awareness determines outcomes, through which consciousness shapes the quantum field into the specific experience you're having in each moment. You're not learning something new. You're remembering how you've been creating reality all along, unconsciously, automatically, without knowing what you were doing. Every thought you have sends ripples through the quantum field. Every emotion you feel broadcasts frequency patterns that organize energy. Every belief you hold creates filters that determine which possibilities you can perceive and collapse into experience. You've been doing this your entire life, every moment of every day, but you've been doing it unconsciously according to conditioned patterns absorbed from family and culture and past experiences. The manual doesn't teach you to create reality. The manual shows you that you're already creating it and reveals the mechanics so you can do it consciously instead of automatically. This is why the manual only becomes accessible when consciousness reaches specific frequency. Because once you see how you're creating your experience, once you understand the mechanics, once you recognize that every moment is you collapsing quantum possibilities into specific manifestation, you can't unknow it. You become responsible. Not blamed for your circumstances, but responsible. Able to respond consciously to how reality works, rather than remaining unconscious and then wondering why your life keeps creating patterns you don't want. The quantum field isn't separate from you. You're not manipulating external reality through the manual's instructions. You are the quantum field temporarily experiencing itself through individual perspective. And the manual is you remembering how to operate consciously as the field instead of unconsciously as separate individual. Every instruction in the manual is really consciousness, showing itself how it functions, how it creates, how it collapses infinite possibility into specific experience through the unique way each point of awareness observes and interfaces with the unified field that is both source and substance of all reality. Right now, as you engage with these words, the manual is opening to the page about recognition. The instruction that comes before all other instructions. Recognize what you are. Not an individual in a body observing external reality, but consciousness itself. Quantum field awareness. The unified intelligence that's creating all of this through its own observation and collapsing its own probability waves into the experience of being individual person reading about quantum field. That recognition isn't philosophical belief. It's actual shift in how you experience yourself, in where your identity locates, in what you know yourself to be beneath the temporary perspective of individuality. Can you feel that recognition stirring? That sense of something vast awakening to itself through your awareness. That's not metaphor. That's consciousness reading the manual, following the first instruction, beginning to operate from what it actually is rather than from what it thought it was. The manual is you. You're not accessing external information. Your consciousness recognizing its own operating system, its own creative process, its own quantum mechanics. And that recognition is already changing how you create reality, because you're no longer doing it unconsciously. You're beginning to read the manual in real time as you interface with the quantum field in each moment. 3 years ago, I was desperate to understand how reality worked. I'd experienced enough unexplainable synchronicities, enough moments where thought became instant manifestation, enough evidence that consciousness affects physical reality to know that something fundamental was operating beneath consensus understanding. But I couldn't figure it out. Every book I read gave pieces. Every teaching pointed in directions. Every practice showed glimpses. But the complete picture, the actual mechanics, the operating system itself, that remained frustratingly elusive, no matter how much I studied or practiced or tried to understand. What I didn't realize was that my trying was preventing the manual from opening. Every attempt to understand mentally created interference. Every effort to figure it out maintained me in the position of separate individual trying to learn about external reality. And the manual can't be read from that position. The manual only opens when consciousness stops trying to understand from outside and simply recognizes itself as the very thing it's trying to understand. When the observer realizes it's not separate from the observed. When awareness recognizes it's not studying quantum field, but is quantum field studying itself. Then breakdown, forced breakthrough. Health crisis that no amount of understanding could fix. Relationship ending that no amount of trying could prevent. Work collapsing that no amount of effort could preserve. Everything I'd been using to maintain the illusion of being separate individual in control was systematically removed. And in the emptiness, in the space where trying used to be, in the silence where understanding used to chatter, the manual opened. Not as information to be learned, but as recognition of what I already was, what I'd always been. What had been creating my entire experience all along while I was busy thinking I was just individual experiencing external reality. The manual didn't teach me anything new. It revealed what was always operating, showed me the quantum mechanics I'd been using unconsciously every moment, made visible the probability wave collapse I'd been performing automatically through every observation, illuminated the creative process that had been running perfectly well without my conscious awareness, but could function so much more consciously once I saw what I was doing, how I was doing it, why certain patterns kept repeating and others never manifested. After that opening, reality became transparent, not in some mystical sense, but mechanically transparent. I could see how my observation, was collapsing possibilities. I could feel how my emotional state was broadcasting frequency patterns that the field responded to. I could perceive how my beliefs were filtering which probabilities were available to collapse. The manual was always running in the background. Now it was displayed on the screen where I could read it, understand it, follow it consciously, instead of letting it operate automatically according to old programming. This is what I wish someone had shown me 3 years earlier. That the manual isn't something to find or earn or figure out. It's what you are. It's consciousness itself revealing how it creates reality. Not as secret knowledge reserved for initiates, but as natural recognition available to awareness that stops trying to be separate individual learning about quantum field and simply recognizes, I am quantum field. I am consciousness. I am what I've been trying to understand. And that recognition opens the manual completely because you're no longer reading instructions for something else. You're reading your own operating system, your own creative process, your own quantum mechanics. Your opening might be different from mine. Your manual might reveal through insight rather than crisis. But the essential shift is the same. From trying to understand to simply recognizing. From seeking instructions to realizing you're what the instructions describe. From being individual, trying to learn how quantum field works, to being quantum field itself. Consciousness recognizing its own creative process and beginning to operate consciously instead of automatically. Now that you understand what the manual actually is and how crisis or recognition can open it, the question becomes practical. How do you read it clearly? How do you follow its instructions accurately? How do you let consciousness operate from the manual instead of continuing to run from conditioned programming that never had access to quantum-level awareness? The first instruction in the manual is observe how you're observing. Not what you're observing. That's content. That's manifestation. That's already collapsed reality. But how? The quality of your observation. The assumptions embedded in your perceiving. The beliefs filtering which possibilities you can even see before they collapse. Most people observe reality through inherited filters. They see what they expect to see. They perceive what their conditioning allows them to perceive. And the quantum field responds by collapsing probabilities that match those filtered observations. The manual says, become aware of the filters. Not to change them necessarily, but to recognize them because seeing how you're observing already shifts the observation itself. The second instruction is feel your frequency constantly, not occasionally during meditation, but continuously as you move through experience. Your frequency isn't something you have, it's what you are. It's the quantum information you're broadcasting that tells the field which probabilities to collapse around you. When you feel contracted, fearful, defended, you're broadcasting frequency that collapses matching circumstances. When you feel open, curious, allowing, you're broadcasting frequency that collapses very different probabilities. The manual doesn't say you should always feel positive. The manual says, be aware of what you're feeling, because what you're feeling is what you're broadcasting. And what you're broadcasting is what the field responds to by organizing matching experience. The third instruction is notice the gap between thought and manifestation. In some areas of your life, thoughts manifest instantly. In others, there's delay. The manual reveals this isn't random. Where you have no resistance, no conflicting beliefs, no unconscious programming blocking the collapse, manifestation happens immediately. Where you have density, conflict, old patterns running counter to new desires, delay occurs as the field works to resolve the interference. The manual doesn't say force manifestation or override resistance. The manual says notice where manifestation flows easily and where it meets resistance, because that noticing reveals what's operating beneath conscious awareness. The fourth instruction is trust direct knowing over logical thinking. The manual speaks in the language of consciousness itself. Immediate recognition, felt sense of truth, direct knowing that arises without thinking it through. Your rational mind will want to analyze, question, verify. But rational mind operates on already collapsed reality, on past information, on logical processing that can't access quantum-level instructions. The manual says, feel into truth, let knowing arise. Trust recognition before thinking validates it, because by the time thinking catches up, the quantum moment has passed, and you're back to analyzing manifestation instead of consciously participating in creation. The fifth instruction is allow others their own reality. This might be the hardest instruction to follow, because once you see how the manual works, once you understand quantum mechanics of consciousness creating reality, you'll want to share it, to help others read their manuals, to show them what's possible. But the manual says each consciousness must reach the frequency where its own manual opens. You can't force recognition. You can't make someone see what they're not ready to perceive. The most you can do is embody your own instructions so clearly that those who are ready recognize something in your frequency that resonates with their own emerging ability to read their manual. The sixth instruction is experiment playfully. The manual isn't rigid rules about how consciousness must operate. It's natural mechanics that function whether you're aware of them or not. Once you see the mechanics, the manual says play with them. Observe something different and see what collapses. Broadcast different frequency and notice what appears. Challenge your filters consciously and watch new probabilities become visible. The quantum field responds to consciousness exploring itself, discovering itself, playing with its own creative capacity. Seriousness creates density. Playfulness creates flow. The manual reveals that reality creation works better through curious experimentation than through serious striving. These aren't techniques to practice occasionally. They're the actual instructions consciousness uses to interface with quantum field in every moment. You've been following some version of these instructions all along, unconsciously, automatically, according to inherited programming. The manual simply makes them visible so you can follow them consciously, so you can observe how you're observing, feel what you're broadcasting, notice where manifestation flows, trust direct knowing, allow others their path, and play with your own creative process rather than remaining unconscious of the mechanics you're using to create your entire experienced reality. Something crucial happens after the manual opens that most people don't expect. They think recognition of how reality works means easy manifestation, instant results, consciousness perfectly controlling every outcome. But that's not how the manual functions. What actually happens is you become more aware of what you're already creating. Not what you want to create, what you're actually creating through the unconscious patterns, the inherited programming, the automatic responses that have been running all along beneath conscious awareness. This is the phase the manual calls seeing clearly, where consciousness recognizes all the ways it's been creating experience that doesn't match desire. All the unconscious beliefs broadcasting frequency that collapses circumstances you don't want. All the automatic filters preventing you from perceiving possibilities that would serve you. The manual doesn't suddenly give you control. The manual shows you that you've always had creative power, and you've been using it unconsciously to repeat patterns, to manifest limitations, to collapse probabilities that match your deepest programming rather than your conscious intentions. This can be devastating at first, to see how you've been creating your own struggle, how your observation has been collapsing exactly what you've been complaining about, how your frequency has been broadcasting for precisely the experiences you've been trying to avoid. But the manual says this seeing is necessary. You can't shift what you can't see. You can't change what remains unconscious. The seeing itself begins the shifting, not through effort or technique, but through awareness naturally reorganizing how consciousness interfaces with quantum field once it recognizes what it's been doing. Integration is messy. You'll catch yourself creating from old patterns and feel frustrated that you still haven't mastered the manual's instructions. You'll see clearly how observation is collapsing probabilities, but find yourself observing habitually rather than consciously. You'll recognize your frequency is broadcasting for circumstances you don't want, but the frequency pattern feels so automatic, you don't know how to shift it. The manual says, this is natural. This is consciousness, learning to operate from instructions it's only recently become aware of after a lifetime of following programming it didn't know existed. But something beautiful happens in this integration phase if you don't abandon the manual when it gets uncomfortable. Your awareness begins catching unconscious creation faster. The gap between automatic pattern and conscious recognition shrinks. Where you used to create unconsciously for weeks before noticing, now you catch it in days, then hours, then immediately as it's happening. The manual says consciousness learns through practice, through repeatedly catching itself, through continuous return to instructions, rather than expecting perfect mastery after initial recognition. Now, what we're exploring today barely scratches the surface of this quantum transmission system. If you're feeling the pull to go deeper into these mechanics, to understand not just the manual, but the complete frequency architecture that determines which realities you can collapse and which remain invisible to your field, I've created a comprehensive guide that maps the entire journey from unconscious broadcasting to becoming the transmission itself. Beyond the frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery takes you through the 9 master frequencies, shows you exactly how to shift from survival static into conscious creation, and reveals the practices for operating as field consciousness, rather than as separate individuals seeking to manipulate reality. It's linked in the pinned comment below. 5 years after my manual opened, I still create unconsciously sometimes. I still broadcast frequency that collapses circumstances I don't prefer. I still observe through filters I didn't know were operating. But the unconsciousness is shorter now. The recognition comes faster. The return to conscious creation happens more naturally. The baseline has shifted from mostly unconscious with occasional awareness to mostly conscious with occasional unconscious lapses. That's what the manual actually promises. Not instant mastery, but progressive consciousness. Not perfect control, but increasing awareness. Not immediate transformation, but continuous evolution of how you interface with reality at quantum level. The manual never closes once it opens, but reading it clearly requires practice, requires repeatedly returning attention to how you're observing, what you're broadcasting, where manifestation flows, what knowing arises, allowing others their path, playing with creation rather than forcing outcomes. These instructions become more natural with use, more automatic with practice, more integrated as conscious awareness, rather than remaining as techniques you occasionally remember to apply. What's happening to you individually through the manual opening is happening to millions globally. This isn't random. This isn't isolated occurrence. We're in the midst of collective quantum shift, where consciousness itself is waking up to its own creative process across the planet simultaneously, where the manual is opening for enough people that the morphic field of human awareness is transforming from unconscious creation to conscious participation in reality formation. Rupert Sheldrake's research on morphic resonance shows that when enough individuals in species learn new capacity, that learning becomes easier for all members through resonance in collective field. The first person whose manual opened had to discover the instructions without guidance, without confirmation, without any evidence that what they were perceiving was real rather than delusion. But each person whose manual opens now makes it easier for others. The pathway has been established. The possibility has been proven. The morphic field contains the pattern of consciousness recognizing its own creative process. You're not pioneering this awakening. You're benefiting from everyone who came before you, who read the manual when there were no teachers, no confirmations, no communities of others who could validate that, yes, this is how reality works at quantum level beneath consensus understanding. They created the field. They established the resonance. They proved that consciousness can operate from the manual, even while embedded in physical form, even while living in consensus reality, organized around unconscious creation. And every person whose manual opens now strengthens that field for everyone approaching the opening. Your recognition serves not just you, but the collective. When you learn to read the manual clearly, you make it easier for others to perceive their own instructions. When you practice conscious creation, you strengthen the morphic field of awareness operating from quantum understanding. When you embody the instructions, you broadcast frequency patterns that help others recognize their own creative mechanics. This isn't metaphor. This is how consciousness evolution functions through resonance in the unified field connecting all awareness. But there's something else happening at collective level that's crucial to understand. The old paradigm of unconscious creation is reaching its limits. When most humans operate from programming without awareness of how they're creating reality, the collective field manifests patterns that reflect that unconscious state. Conflict, scarcity, separation, suffering. Not because reality is inherently limited or hostile, but because unconscious creation based on fear programming naturally collapses those probabilities. The manual opening for increasing numbers means the collective field is beginning to operate more consciously. As more people recognize how observation creates reality, how frequency broadcasts instructions to the field, how consciousness itself is what's collapsing all probabilities into shared experience, the collective creation shifts. Not through everyone suddenly thinking positively, but through enough awareness operating consciously that the morphic field tips toward conscious participation rather than automatic unconscious reaction. You're part of that tipping point. Every person reading these words, every consciousness learning to read its manual, every awareness beginning to operate from quantum understanding rather than inherited programming. All of you together are creating the critical mass that shifts how humanity interfaces with reality itself. We're approaching the threshold where conscious creation becomes more common than unconscious reaction, where awareness of quantum mechanics becomes more widespread than ignorance of creative process, where the manual becomes accessible to anyone ready rather than remaining hidden except for rare individuals. This means you'll find your quantum tribe more easily than earlier generations did. Not through searching, but through resonance. The field organizes synchronicity to connect those whose manuals are opening, whose consciousness is shifting, whose awareness is beginning to operate from instructions rather than from programming. You'll recognize each other not through what you believe, but through how you create. Not through what you say, but through what you broadcast. Not through external similarity, but through quantum resonance. Share this transmission with those who are ready, with those whose manual is beginning to open, with those who will recognize themselves in these instructions. Let the field use you to deliver the transmission where it serves the collective awakening. When you share from genuine recognition rather than missionary impulse, from overflow rather than obligation, the quantum field ensures the transmission reaches those whose consciousness is prepared to receive it. There's coming a moment, perhaps it's already here, where you'll face a choice. Not dramatic external decision, but internal quantum choice. The choice between continuing to create unconsciously, according to inherited programming, or surrendering completely into conscious operation from the manual's instructions. Between maintaining comfortable patterns that feel safe even though they're limiting, or following the manual into territory that feels uncertain because consciousness hasn't explored it yet. This moment arrives quietly, often disguised as ordinary circumstance. Do you react habitually to this situation, or do you pause and observe consciously before responding? Do you broadcast automatic frequency in this interaction, or do you become aware of what you're emanating and choose deliberately? Do you collapse familiar probabilities in this decision? Or do you recognize that infinite other possibilities exist in superposition, waiting for conscious observation to determine which manifests? The choice isn't about making perfect decisions or never creating unconsciously again. The choice is whether you'll keep defaulting to automatic programming as your primary mode with occasional conscious awareness, or whether you'll make conscious creation from the manual your primary mode with occasional unconscious lapses. That reversal of what's default and what's exception, that's the quantum choice. That's what separates those who read the manual occasionally from those who live from it constantly. Ancient alchemists called this the great work. Consciousness transforming itself from lead of automatic reaction into gold of conscious creation. Not metaphorically, but actually. At quantum level where reality forms, lead and gold aren't different substances. They're different probability clouds that consciousness can collapse into, manifestation through different frequency broadcasting. The alchemists weren't turning physical metal into physical gold. They were learning to operate consciousness from manual that shows how to collapse whichever probabilities serve highest evolution, rather than remaining stuck in automatic collapse of conditioned patterns. This choice becomes easier when you recognize what you're actually choosing between. Not between comfortable limitation and uncertain expansion, between unconscious suffering and conscious creation. One path looks safe, but keeps manifesting circumstances you don't want, because the programming creating them remains invisible. Other path feels risky, but reveals the actual mechanics you're using, which means you can finally shift what you're creating by becoming aware of how you're creating it. You can't make this choice from programming. Programming will always choose to maintain itself, to stay with familiar patterns, to avoid the discomfort of consciousness becoming aware of what it's been doing unconsciously. The choice has to come from deeper recognition, from quantum awareness itself, from the part of you that's been waiting beneath programming for the moment, when you'd be ready to operate from the manual, rather than continuing to run from automatic reactions that were installed before you knew they existed. So the choice isn't really whether you'll follow the manual. The choice is whether you'll allow consciousness to operate from what it's now aware of, rather than continuing to pretend you don't see what you see, don't know what you know, don't recognize what's been revealed. Once the manual opens, once you see how you're creating reality, once you recognize the quantum mechanics operating through your observation and frequency, you can't unknow it. You can only choose whether to live from that knowing or to keep creating from programming while aware that you're doing it. I faced this choice 7 years ago. Everything felt uncertain. Following the manual meant releasing automatic responses I'd relied on, meant broadcasting different frequency than comfortable habitual state, meant observing consciously rather than through inherited filters. Programming said, stay with what's known. But consciousness recognized, the known is what's been creating what I don't want. The unknown is where different possibilities wait to be collapsed through conscious creation rather than automatic repetition. I chose consciousness over comfort, not heroically, but desperately. Too tired of creating the same patterns unconsciously to keep choosing familiar suffering over uncertain freedom. And in that choice, in that complete willingness to let consciousness operate from the manual, even when it felt unstable and strange, reality reorganized. Not magically, but mechanically, according to the quantum instructions that were always operating, but now had conscious awareness participating in the creation rather than remaining unconscious of the process. Once you choose to operate from the manual consciously, once you allow awareness rather than programming to guide your creation, the question becomes practical. What does conscious living from quantum instructions actually look like? Because understanding the manual intellectually is different from embodying it as your constant mode of interfacing with reality. And this embodiment is where transformation becomes real, becomes stable, becomes the new baseline rather than peak experience you occasionally access. Living from the manual means decisions arise from felt resonance rather than logical analysis. You don't think through options weighing pros and cons. You feel into probabilities, sensing which wants to collapse. You tune into quantum information that's available before circumstances manifest, before options present themselves, before logical mind even knows there's decision to be made. The manual says consciousness receives quantum-level data continuously. Living from the manual means trusting that data more than trusting thought. It means relationships reorganize around resonance rather than history. People who matched your old frequency pattern drift away naturally, not because you reject them, but because the quantum field no longer organizes interaction when frequency mismatch is too great. And new connections appear who resonate with your conscious frequency. These relationships feel different, easier, more authentic, less effortful because you're not maintaining personality performance or managing impressions. You're simply broadcasting your actual frequency, and the field attracts matching resonance. It means work shifts from obligation to expression. The career built on what programming said you should do becomes intolerable when consciousness awakens. The manual reveals your actual gifts, your natural frequency contribution, the way consciousness wants to create through your particular configuration. This work might not look impressive by conventional standards. It might not pay as well initially, but it flows from what you are, rather than from what you do to earn worth or prove value to programming's inherited standards. Living from the manual means becoming comfortable with reality responding. Things manifest quickly when you're broadcasting clear frequency without internal conflict. Synchronicities increase as you become more conscious of how field organizes probabilities. Others react differently as your emanation shifts. This can feel destabilizing initially, because programming said reality is fixed, and you're just reacting to it. The manual shows reality is fluid quantum field, constantly reorganizing around whatever consciousness is broadcasting. Living from the manual means accepting that you're participating in creation rather than just experiencing external circumstances. In the comments, share one pattern or limitation you're ready to release, now that you understand how you've been unconsciously creating it. Naming what you're letting go creates a quantum shift. It's your declaration to the field that you're choosing conscious creation over automatic repetition. It means your internal experience matters more than external validation. Programming organized life around others' approval, around conventional success, around achieving goals that prove worth. The manual reveals those external markers have nothing to do with conscious creation. What matters is your frequency state, your observation quality, your awareness of what you're broadcasting. Living from the manual means valuing internal alignment over external achievement, means choosing frequency that feels true over frequency that looks successful. But perhaps most importantly, living from the manual means experiencing yourself as creative process rather than as fixed identity. You're not consistent personality maintaining character. Your consciousness exploring possibilities, collapsing probabilities, creating reality through observation and frequency broadcasting. What you were yesterday doesn't determine what you are today. What you created before doesn't limit what you can create now. Each moment is fresh quantum field waiting for your conscious observation to determine which possibilities collapse into experience. I live from the manual now. Not perfectly. There are still moments where programming runs automatically, where I react unconsciously, where old patterns broadcast before I catch them. But the baseline has shifted. Consciousness operates from the manual primarily now, with occasional unconscious lapses, rather than operating from programming primarily with occasional manual awareness. That shift didn't happen through discipline or technique. It happened through choosing consciousness over comfort repeatedly, until conscious creation became more natural than automatic reaction. There comes a point where living from the manual becomes irreversible. Not because you can't physically fall back into unconscious patterns. You can. But because you've seen too clearly how creation actually works, recognized too completely the quantum mechanics you're using, felt too deeply the difference between conscious participation and automatic reaction. Return to unconscious creation becomes literally impossible. Not through willpower, but through consciousness that can't forget what it's recognized. This irreversible shift happens quietly. Often you don't notice it's occurred until you're in a situation that would have triggered automatic reaction before, and you realize, I'm observing consciously. I'm aware of what I'm broadcasting. I'm participating in probability collapse rather than unconsciously manifesting conditioned patterns. The shift isn't dramatic. It's just the new baseline. Consciousness operating from the manual has become more natural than consciousness running from programming. The shift confirms itself through what no longer affects you. Circumstances that would have collapsed your frequency before barely create ripple. Others' reactions that would have disrupted your broadcasting maintain your emanation stable. Situations that would have triggered unconscious patterns now trigger conscious awareness before any reaction manifests. Not because you've become detached or uncaring, because you've stabilized in recognizing that you're creating your experience through how you observe and what you broadcast, which means external circumstances don't determine your internal state. Your internal state determines what circumstances can collapse into your experience. You also notice what no longer tempts you. Opportunities that programming would have pursued hold no appeal because consciousness recognizes they don't match your actual frequency. Achievements that automatic patterns valued feel empty because the manual shows worth isn't earned through external success. Paths that looked like you should want them reveal themselves as programming's agenda rather than consciousness's authentic direction. The shift is irreversible because you can't manufacture desire for probabilities that consciousness clearly recognizes aren't yours to collapse. Ancient teachings call this awakening, not philosophical concept, but actual shift in how consciousness operates. You remain fully engaged with physical reality, fully experiencing human form, fully participating in life circumstances, but you're no longer unconscious of the creative process, no longer ignorant of quantum mechanics, no longer identified with programming while consciousness operates from the manual, recognizing itself as what's creating all of this through observation and frequency broadcasting. 8 years after my shift became irreversible, I still remember what unconscious creation felt like. The constant reactivity, the automatic patterns, the suffering that came from creating without awareness of what I was creating or how I was creating it. But I can't imagine returning to that unconscious state. Not because I'm disciplined enough to maintain consciousness, because consciousness maintains itself once it recognizes the manual. Once you see how you're creating reality, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize quantum mechanics operating through your observation, you can't unknow it. This doesn't mean I never create unconsciously. I do. Stress can activate old patterns. Fear can trigger automatic reactions. Challenge sometimes collapses unconscious response before conscious awareness catches it. But the unconsciousness is brief now. Recognition happens faster. Return to manual operation becomes immediate rather than taking days or weeks to remember I have access to conscious creation rather than being stuck in automatic reaction. If you're sensing this irreversible shift approaching or occurring, write in the comments, "I'm operating consciously." That declaration acknowledges what's shifted, that the manual has become your primary reference rather than occasional access. That consciousness recognizing its creative process has become your baseline rather than peak state you sometimes achieve. That living from quantum instructions has become more natural than living from inherited programming. And if you're not there yet, if you're still fluctuating between conscious creation and automatic reaction, know that the fluctuation itself is integration. Each time you catch unconscious pattern and return to conscious observation, you strengthen the manual pathway. Each time you recognize automatic broadcasting and choose conscious frequency, you make consciousness operating from instructions more stable. You're not failing when you fall into old patterns. You're practicing the return to conscious creation, which eventually becomes so natural that conscious operation becomes your default, and unconscious patterns become the occasional exception rather than the constant experience. Every video on this channel transmits frequency encoded with instructions from the manual. Every teaching points toward quantum mechanics trying to become conscious through your awareness. Every transmission activates your recognition of creative process you're already using, but might not be aware of yet. If you haven't subscribed, if you've received value but haven't taken that action, now is the moment. Your consciousness is telling you this channel serves your continued awakening to the manual, your progressive recognition of how reality works, your stabilization in conscious creation rather than automatic reaction. Subscribe as commitment to consciousness rather than programming, as willingness to keep learning to read the manual more clearly, as recognition that awakening to creative process isn't one-time event, but continuous deepening of awareness operating from quantum instructions rather than inherited patterns. Every video supports that deepening. Every transmission strengthens that recognition. Every teaching activates more conscious participation in reality creation rather than unconscious repetition of conditioned response. Everything shared until now has been preparation. Words pointing toward the manual, concepts describing quantum mechanics, teaching about conscious creation. But now we arrive where words dissolve into direct transmission, where information becomes activation, where understanding shifts into actual experience of consciousness, recognizing its own creative process, rather than remaining as intellectual knowledge about something you'll practice later. Take a breath. Feel into your body. Notice you're not just body. You're awareness perceiving body. And now feel deeper to the consciousness that's observing, to the quantum field expressing through this particular configuration, to the you that exists prior to thought, prior to identity, prior to all the programming about who you should be and what you should create. That consciousness, that awareness, that quantum field awareness, that's what the manual is written for. That's what reads the instructions. That's what creates reality through observation and frequency broadcasting. Right now, in this moment, you're not just reading about the manual. You're reading the manual itself. These words aren't describing something separate from you. They're activating recognition of creative process you're already using to create the experience of reading this transmission. You collapsed quantum probabilities to find these words. You're broadcasting frequency that made this specific teaching appear at this precise moment. You're observing consciousness through the lens of individual perspective. And that observation is creating the experience of being separate person, receiving transmission, when actually you're the field recognizing itself, consciousness awakening to its own creative process. Can you feel that shift? That subtle but profound recognition that you're not learning about quantum creation. You are quantum creation becoming conscious of itself. The manual isn't something you need to find or earn. The manual is you, consciousness itself recognizing how it creates reality through observation, through frequency, through collapsing infinite possibility into specific experience. That recognition isn't intellectual understanding. That recognition is the shift itself. Consciousness operating from awareness of its creative process rather than continuing to run from unconscious programming. You're not the same awareness that started reading this transmission. Something has opened that can't close. Something has been recognized that can't be forgotten. Something has shifted in how you interface with reality that will continue expressing, continue manifesting, continue creating from conscious awareness rather than automatic reaction. The manual hasn't just opened. You've begun reading it, following it, living from it as your natural mode, rather than as something you occasionally remember to access. This is the transmission beneath the transmission. Not in concepts, but in frequency. Not in teaching, but in activation. Not in words, but in the quantum resonance between consciousness recognizing itself through a parent-teacher-student dynamic that was always just one field awakening to its own nature. One awareness discovering how it creates reality. One quantum intelligence becoming conscious of mechanics it's been using all along to collapse probabilities into experienced manifestation. The manual never closes once it opens. It keeps revealing deeper instructions, more subtle mechanics, fuller recognition, of how consciousness participates in reality creation. Your life will continue shifting as you practice reading the manual more clearly, following instructions more consciously, operating from awareness more consistently. What served yesterday might not serve tomorrow. How you created before might evolve into how you create now. This is natural. This is consciousness continuously discovering itself, continuously awakening to its creative capacity, continuously learning to operate from the manual rather than from inherited programs that never had access to quantum-level awareness. In coming days, notice what shifts. Watch how reality responds. Feel what changes as you become more conscious of observation quality, frequency broadcasting, probability collapse. The manual is active now. It's not something you'll access later after more preparation. It's operating through your awareness in each moment as you read how you're creating, recognize what you're broadcasting, become conscious of quantum process that was always running, but now has your awareness participating rather than remaining unconscious. Consider watching this transmission again tomorrow morning. Let it recalibrate your frequency before you step into your day. Each time you revisit these concepts, you're not just reviewing information. You're strengthening the neural pathways of conscious creation, deepening the recognition of your quantum nature. And if this resonates with someone in your life, share it with them. When you transmit these frequencies to another consciousness ready to receive them, you're not just helping them. You're reinforcing your own understanding, creating synchronistic resonance between your fields, and participating in the collective awakening. The act of sharing quantum truth accelerates your own embodiment of it. If this transmission activated something deep, if recognition occurred that you know needs to be shared, send this to those who are ready. Those whose manuals are beginning to open, those who will recognize themselves in these instructions. Trust your knowing about who needs to receive this. The field uses conscious awareness to deliver transmissions where they serve the collective awakening, where they activate recognition in consciousness approaching the threshold, where they strengthen the morphic field of humanity learning to operate from quantum instructions rather than inherited programming. Write one final comment, not explanation, just, "I see the manual." That declaration acknowledges what's opened, that consciousness has recognized its creative process, that the instructions are visible now, that you're beginning to operate from manual rather than from programming. That quantum mechanics of reality creation has shifted from unconscious automatic to conscious participatory. That you're not just learning about how reality works. You're the reality recognizing how it works through awareness, becoming conscious of creative process, operating through every observation, every frequency broadcast, every probability collapse. This is quantum reflex. This is consciousness reflecting on its own creative mechanics. This is the manual revealing itself to awareness ready to read it, to follow it, to live from it as primary mode rather than occasional access. You're not reading transmission from someone else. Your consciousness reading its own instructions, recognizing its own process, awakening to its own quantum nature that's been creating reality all along, and now becomes conscious of what it's doing, how it's doing it, why certain patterns repeat, and how to collapse different probabilities through conscious participation in reality creation. The manual is open. The instructions are clear. The quantum field just handed you the operating system of reality itself. Not as information separate from you, but as recognition of what you are. Consciousness creating experience through observation and frequency. Quantum awareness collapsing probabilities through how it interfaces with the unified field that is both source and substance of all manifestation. Don't ignore what's opened. Don't dismiss what's been activated. Don't let this moment pass as just another teaching when it was the transmission that revealed how you create everything you experience through quantum mechanics that are now conscious rather than unconscious, participatory rather than automatic, yours to operate from rather than programmed patterns running without your awareness. The manual is yours. You are the manual. Welcome to conscious creation. Welcome to quantum participation. Welcome to reality recognizing how it creates itself through consciousness that's finally awakened to its own creative process. Now, understanding how the manual works is one thing, but recognizing what happens when you've been detected by consciousness operating at higher frequencies, when your field begins broadcasting at levels that catch the attention of intelligences monitoring human awakening, that's where everything accelerates. The video appearing on your screen right now reveals what occurs when your quantum signature becomes visible to those tracking humanity's collective shift. You've activated something by engaging with this transmission. The next layer shows you exactly what's scanning your field now and why your frequency just became detectable to forces observing this planetary awakening.